I came into this thing thinking like, man, we about to see some fire. Like we about to get this gonna be like a minimum 8 score of a show.
It did hit some spots for me, some bright spots for me where I'm like, yeah, I knew that this was gonna be here, or yeah, I want to get this when it come out. But some of this stuff, I'm just like, y'all got me kind of looking at y'all a little funny now.
The CG trailers, that's kind of the real sin here. There's way too much of that.
Came in with everybody thinking that it was gonna blow our minds, but it kind of went out with a bit of a thud.
Microsoft, man, they about to get blown out of water about what Sony's about to show, and that didn't happen.
All right, we're back once again with the No Level Cap podcast. Again, we're back to talk about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, none of the bullshit. I want y'all to give me a few minutes to introduce my incredible co-hosts. We've got the collector of collectors and the king of Apex, Will Coleman. What's going on, Will?
I'm blind right now. Give me a second. All right, so I'm back. I'm living. I'm happy. I have my job now. I'm back to playing Apex again. I'm doing great, and I've been back to streaming. I streamed 2 times in one day. I'll never do that shit again. I think I'm getting old, and I hate it. But
hey,
we
man,
here for a good time, not a long time.
Hey man, it's a challenge streaming multiple times in the same day. Like I've done that before. Hopefully, I'll get the chance to do that again when the Summer Games showcases come around, and I'll be back online reacting to everything. Ideally, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Next up, we've got Mr. One Punch Man and the Master of Combos, Devin Butts. What's going on, Devin?
Good, man. Just had this fun time with Street Fighter 6, the beta last week. Still got fun thoughts and daydreams, and of that. Made some combo videos, about 3 combo videos off that. Also, I forgot they actually did an update for the Dragon Ball Fighters, like a patch for it. Actually tried some of that out earlier today and yesterday, and they got some crazy stuff in that. So I might actually make some content for that soon too. But yeah, man, just that work. Just next Friday, man, it's gonna be lit because I think the Spider-Man movie comes out that day too, I believe. So it's
same day.
Friday finna be kind of crazy, man. I might take off. I might call my job like, hey, man. But yeah, man. Other than that, man, doing pretty good, man. Just wait until Friday.
That's fair enough. I mean, next week is going to be live in June in general. It's going to be live. Next up, we've got Black Daredevil and the Secret Weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. What's good, Terrence?
Everything.
Yeah, so what's funny here is we were recording. We were about 10 minutes in, and I looked over and realized, oh, the record button hadn't been hit. Oh, we hadn't really been recording, so we just been talking and nothing's been happening this entire time. So yeah, there's like a lost 10 minutes to this episode that you all as the audience will never get. And 10 minutes of our life we will never get back. Oh, that's straight up my fault. There's 62 episodes in. I guess it was bound to happen, but it's definitely embarrassing when it does. You got to hit the Marge Simpson on that one. No, but everything on my end is all good. I'm like Devin. I'm highly anticipating Street Fighter 6. Definitely looking forward to playing that Friday. Spider-Verse, when that comes out, I plan to see that, I think, June 4th, which is Sunday. Yeah, June is going to be a crazy month, and we kicked things off with this showcase, which we're going to get into. So, yeah, I'm good.
Fair enough. Let's run this one more time. If you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We're on YouTube, of course, but we're also available on Spotify for people who like to listen to this in audio form, whether you're on your way to work, whether you at home, whatever you're doing. We're also on TikTok for people with short ass attention spans. We everywhere, baby. We everywhere you need us to be. Okay. I said this before. We hyped this up for like a while, and now it finally happened this past Wednesday. The Sony PlayStation Showcase, even though it felt more like a state of play, to be honest with you. This was where we were supposed to see the next wave 2, as it were, from Sony. The next couple of years of Sony, basically the mid-gen type games. We'd only known about like a couple of games, but now, we've had a chance to to see what they think is coming, what they want to come, because, games shift around in terms of dates all the time. So like, but we got to see what they hope is coming over the next 2024, 2025. So I don't want to waste no more time. Let's just go ahead and get into the show. Terrence, what did you think of the show?
So this is definitely take two on this, but let's go for it. So I think overall the show was just okay. It wasn't like the worst show that Sony has done, but it probably is one of the worst that they've done in like a very long time. The problem is that a lot of this was meant to showcase the future of PlayStation. They even said it so themselves at the beginning of the show. And yeah, the stuff that they showed that's coming for 2023 or even for 2024, I mean, it just looks okay. Of course, you have your standouts like Spider-Man, obviously, but a lot of what we saw felt like stuff that was kind of outside of Sony's usual realm, which I'm not saying that it's wrong for them to experiment, but they were showing us a lot of PvP stuff that, let's be honest, a lot of that kind of stuff is failing right now. Like a lot of those live service games are starting to go down the toilet. So for Sony to show that kind of stuff now is a little concerning. No mention of games like Stellar Blade or Eternights, but I will say with Eternights, I looked up on Twitter and the person who I guess is the head developer said that they're just now starting the voice acting sessions, or at least they started them in March. So that means that game probably is like way off in the fall or something like that. So that explains that. But Stellar Blade not being there is kind of crazy. It gives a little concern as to whether that game is going to come out this year or not. But yeah, a lot of games that were just CG trailers that don't really show us anything about them other than just stuff that's been pre-rendered. Yeah, I don't know. This showcase was a weird one. Like I said, there were some standouts, which we'll get into later, but overall it was just okay. And this is also, if we're being honest, the showcase that kind of sets off the E3 season. And if this is the way E3 is going to go, then it's going to be kind of concerning. Yeah, we'll just have to see how Jeff's showcase and Microsoft's showcase goes. But this one definitely came in with everybody thinking that it was going to blow our minds, but it kind of went out with a bit of a thud. So overall, I give it probably a 6. I just can't really give it any higher than that just because it didn't really like set, anything ablaze.
That's a fair summation of it. I think we all gonna kind of fall in the same kind of range. Devin, what did you think of the show?
Just to echo off what you all said, especially Terrence, it just wasn't the greatest show. I came into this thing thinking like, man, we about to see some fire. Like we about to get this gonna be like a minimum 8 score of a show. There's a guy I follow on YouTube, the Gamer 2323, and he was super hype. He's like, man, this show about to Microsoft, man, they about to get blown out of water about what Sony's about to show, and that didn't happen. So this show was, but aside from a few things that were like MGS3, Spider-Man, it was almost kind of the same as like really like, in my head, I'm thinking like the Xbox Developer Direct. I'm like, bro, this was kind of like that in a sense, just Sony's version of it. It was also weird. A lot of things they showed on there was like, this is like running on a PC. I'm like, well, this is a Sony showcase. Why are you showing things run on PC? Like 2 or 3 games, I remember they said it was run on PC. I'm like, all right, okay. I don't know, man. This was not the greatest for me. I will give it a 6. I'm gonna just give it a 6. Like Terrence said, it's not the absolute worst thing ever, but what I was expecting a lot more. It was like the whole CG thing. They started the show off with fair games, CG. Like I remember we were talking about it, and I thought it was what's the new game that came out?
Payday?
Not Payday, the Finals. I thought it was that new shooter game. It's kind of like Payday, like a multiplayer. I thought it was that, and I'm like, what is this? This just looked like some Watchdog, Payday, shoot 'em. It had a very super Ubisoft vibe. I thought it was an Ubisoft game. But I'm like, you start the show off with just.
If I'm not mistaken, the head of this studio, Haven Studios, is Jade Raymond. Jade Raymond used to work at Ubisoft. She was there for a very long time. Worked on Assassin's Creed and a bunch of other Ubisoft IPs. So there you go.
Okay, well, that makes sense because I'm like, this looks like a Ubisoft property. But yeah, so you started to show off with a CG trailer of a game we know nothing about really. It looks like it's multiplayer. I don't know, man. I hope that we get something great with the Summer's Game Fest and further shows this year. But this PlayStation Showcase was not it, man.
I'm along the lines of y'all. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. There were some bright spots. We'll talk about them later, but I think, like y'all said, the CG trailers, that's kind of the real sin here. There's way too much of that. Like, at one point, it was all about, okay, and to piggyback off of what Devin said, at one point, it was all about, like, okay, what you're seeing here is running on a PlayStation 5. I remember that was how they hyped it up before the PS5 came out. Like, they wanted to, there were some games, like, they didn't even want to show, I think, Final Fantasy 16. I don't think they showed that in the first, like, PlayStation Showcase. They were like, we're not showing that because we can't get it to run on a PS5 yet in a satisfactory manner, and they showed it later that year. And there were other games that they were like, look, we'll put it on in a showcase later this year, but if it can't run on a PS5, we're not going to show it right now. And that was a good ethos to go off of. And somehow, 3 years in, now that y'all done sold hella consoles, you like, oh, well, y'all going to buy it anyway. We were sold out for 2 years, so what the fuck do we care? Whether it's CG trailers, whether it's running on PC, like, none of that. We don't give a damn. Like, y'all going to come buy it. You going to shell out the $500, $499 plus tax. You going to shell it out. So whatever. Other thing, and I said this when we did it the last time, is like the thing that really pissed me off is that there were no release dates really. Like all the games that even I was hyped about, they didn't have release dates. Like, I don't know what happened that made Sony embrace the idea of giving dates at the last minute possible, but it's annoying. Like, Spider-Man's supposed to be coming out in supposedly 4 months. Like, the rumor was September. I think that's what the Venom voice actor Tony Todd, I think that's what he said, like September.
Yeah, he gave it up.
Yeah. So, like, if that's true, you telling me you uncomfortable giving a date for a game 4 months off? Like, what? Like, it's people that be giving dates for games that's like 6 months, a year off and more, and you like, oh, well, we'll let you know sometime in July. Like, bro, you got to get out of here. I mean, like, I think around the time that I saw that K-pop Splatoon, I said, all right, look, man, this show gonna be trash. Like, me and Rakeem was talking about it, and our fellow castmate, he's not here right now, so I just gotta relay a couple of thoughts. Like, me and Rakeem talked about it, and we had the same mindset. They showed this dark Norwich city, and Square Enix, and I seen like the Square Enix sign pop up, and it was like glistening lights, and we both was like, oh shit, Square about to do something different. And then I saw them, happy-go-lucky ass characters show up, and they started shooting off soap. I'm like, all right, man. I knew it was just another multiplayer game, and I mean, Square is not always trash at those, but I knew that I knew this wasn't gonna be the hit that they think it's gonna be. Like, it looked like, and y'all know they've been talking for a while about Square making NFT games and blockchain games and all that bullshit, and I was like, this looked like one of them. This looked like that type shit. Overall, it just felt like they was chasing trends instead of trying to be true to themselves. It felt like the people at Sony were looking at all those memes like Sony games are all identical, and they was like, oh, well, we'll show them. And we know to some extent that's the case because they said they about to start investing 60% of their development budget into live service games, and that's why we got all these fucking multiplayer titles and PvP and all this shit that nobody was really asking for. It was just like console war nonsense, and now you done pulled yourself into, like what Terrence said, like, a lot of those multiplayer games have not been a huge success. And now look at you, like, if those games, like, you put all these games together, if they don't get to popping, like, you'll have a string of failures. And then we'll be looking at you like we've been looking at Microsoft for years now. You don't want that. All right, so it wasn't all well, hold on, actually. Will, what did you think of the show? I know at first you said you was high on it, and then you gave it another shot and you was like not as high. So what did you think of the show?
Yeah, it's like you said. I was high on it at first, and I was just like, it gave a nice little section of things. But upon further review, like an NFL referee, yeah, I seen quite a few things, and I'm just like, you know what? This is cool. This would have been cool if you just showed me what the fucking move like in game. That would have been great if you showed me that, just like you said earlier, some concrete dates or at least something like semi-definitive would have been nice. So that way I've been like, okay, that's coming out at this point in time. I want to try to get my hands on that. And like, honestly, the biggest shock for me coming out of it was seeing MGS or MG Delta Snake Eater, seeing that. I won't even bullshit you about that trailer. I'll say this right now. Let me get this out the way. Seeing that trailer, had that not happened at the end, I would have thought that was like some hardcore dark ass nature simulator.
I definitely thought that.
I was like, bro, am I finna like do some wildlife stuff? Am I gonna be the frog that's gonna get snatched by the bird? Is this what's about to happen to me? Is this the game we putting out? Because simulators are popular, so that's what my brain was aided toward. But then here comes Snake out the water, just like, I'm back, bitch. So you know, so yeah. I think they could have done a hell of a lot better with that. And like you said, a lot of these games are multiplayer, as we see, and I'll delve a little bit into that later because this is what I got to say about that will relate a little bit later. But at the best, it's a 6.5 for me because it did hit some spots for me, some bright spots for me where I'm like, yeah, I knew that this was gonna be here, or yeah, I want to get this when it come out. But some of this stuff, I'm just like, y'all got me kind of looking at y'all a little funny now because you know it ain't up to snuff. What you got, man?
Oh, one thing that I want to say real quick is, in comparison to the showcase from last year, like around the same time, like their June, it was like a June showcase. Is like, nah, this is not on the same level, not at all.
I wasn't even like, you know, they've started, you know, people have noticed like, oh, you know, it's the Sony State of Play versus the PlayStation Showcase. That was just the State of Play, but like what they did was they got in and they got out. I think they showed up last year and it was like Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, Eternites, and like one or two other games, and they was like, all right, that's it, we gone. And it was like 35 to 45 minutes, and that was all they needed. It had like they set the expectations at a reasonable level, got your hype up and got up out of there. And like this was the opposite. Like, you know, they know that PlayStation Showcase has a specific brand, and they were like, yep, we about to shit all over it. So I don't know. It wasn't all terrible though, and there were some standout games, and I did want to ask y'all like what games that y'all feel like, okay, I'm actually pretty excited for this. Devin, what game stood out to you the most?
Excuse me. So the game that actually stood out to me the most for me was excuse me, actually Plucky Squire. That and Phantom Blade kind of like my 1 and 2, like really close. Plucky Squire was, when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, this is like a little indie looking type of game. It's got like supposed to be like a OG Zelda type. But then when I saw like the whole transition to 3D, gave off like takes two or a little Big Planet vibe. I'm like, this looks pretty dope. And it also gave me like shades of Mario Odyssey, like when they go into the walls, like 2D surfaces, like the flat planes, and then pop out. I'm like, this looks pretty dope. I know it's probably not a lot of people's cup of tea, but that looked pretty dope to me. They're kind of like giving an homage to like the OG Zelda, like but making a super modern like, you know, twist on it. I thought that was pretty dope. Phantom Blade. Now I will say this about Phantom Blade, and this is something also me and Sage talked about, but these the Chinese games that like Black Myth Wukong. What's another one?
Where Winds Meet.
That one. Even Lost Soul Aside. Games like this where it's like that was a little different, but it's like these games that look super crazy. The graphics are dope. The combat is insane. It's like all this crazy stuff happening. But it's like, I know Max made a video about it. It's a game that was like shown off not too long ago. Something Odyssey.
Chrono Odyssey.
Odyssey. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And Maximilian made a video saying like this game looks like it's too good. Like this looks too good. And sometimes there's a trend with that, because I want to say this real quick. I remember back when the 360 was being announced, they were showing the games. I went back and looked at this trailer like last week, and Madden 06 had a CG trailer. They said, if I remember correctly, they said this is gameplay. They showed this CG trailer. Like, even then I was like, bro, this is not gameplay. But you don't know, because it's like you don't know going into a new generation what it's gonna look like. So that's the perfect time for them to like pull the wool over your eyes. Man, we get the game like, bro, it don't look nothing like that. Y'all said that was gameplay. It don't look nothing like that. So this game, Phantom Blade Zero, kind of gave me that vibe of like, is this actual gameplay, or is this like some type of CG / game, like in-game rig, and y'all just kind of scripting this stuff? Because this looks really good. If this is actual game, it looks fire. But I gotta see like a demo, somebody actually playing it. I guess the same can be said about something like Ghost of Tsushima. Like Ghost of Tsushima looked crazy, but that was an actual game, man. I'm like, this was actually gameplay. That one was dope. And a few more. Sword of the Sea, Spider-Man 2, that's a
Oh, yeah.
no-brainer. Dragon's Dogma. I've never played Dragon's Dogma, but 2 looks pretty dope. I wouldn't mind trying it out. Obviously, Metal Gear Solid 3. I knew they weren't going to show any like gameplay for that, but like Will just said, the trailer was a little confusing at first. I think I caught on when about halfway with the ants and the bird, I caught on like, this Metal Gear Solid. And then when I saw the bird fly through the fence and you can hear shooting, I'm like, oh, it's Metal Gear Solid 3. Then when I saw the snake, I was for certain like, it's Metal Gear Solid 3. I been wanting this so long for them to do like a remake of either 1, 2, or 3, and it's finally here. And they're giving us like the other games, like I guess on the PSN store or something like that, the Xbox store.
It's in a collection.
Yeah, collection.
So that's giving us the collection that was kept on the PS3 for like the longest time.
Yep.
So that's dope to see. So I would definitely say those are my top games that I saw that was like the bright spots. Sword of Sea was like really dope. It's like one of the people that did Journey. It's like Tony Hawk meets Journey, which is like a really weird combination. But it looks dope, and I just love like the art style they use for those games, and then like this new generation of it looks even better with that art style. So yeah, those are my highlights from the showcase.
Okay, I mean that was a good selection of games. I think there's going to be a little bit of overlap for me and you, and probably all of us really. Terrence, what did you think? Like, what were the standout games for you?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some overlap for me. One, Sword of the Sea. Yeah, that game, it looks great. I enjoyed Journey. It was definitely one of the highlights of the PS3 when it came out. And as soon as I saw those sands and just the art style with it, I was like, oh, this has to be those developers. And sure enough, yeah, as soon as like they show the character riding around on the sea of sand, I was like, oh yeah, I feel back in. I've been taken back to the Journey days with the PS3, which that was fun. That was a really fun game. At that time, it was a unique experience. So looking forward to that. Like Devin said, Phantom Blade Zero. It's funny. We live in a time where also, and then you talked about whether the game is like too polished or real, or if it's even real, Devin. And it's funny. We can get something like Cyberpunk where before that game came out, they showed us the gameplay and how it was supposed to look. And then when it actually came out, it was nothing like that. So even when they show you gameplay, even that sometimes isn't real. Heck, we can look at Redfall where up until recently, they were showing that game running in 60, and then they decided to announce like a month or two before the game came out, oh, it's just going to be in 30. And it's like, what? Like, it's just false advertising.
You got a controller in your hand.
Yeah, it's like just crazy times we're living in that regard. Plucky Squire, I agree, Devin. That game, it looks really cute. It looks fun. I like the way that it goes from 2D to 3D, and then it changes perspectives in other ways too. That game looks like it'll be a nice little indie winner. Metal Gear Solid 3, I'm not going to talk too much about that just because, it's Metal Gear Solid. It's good to have it back. Although I know it started the conversation of who's developing this game exactly. Like, is Kojima involved anyway? More than likely not. And it's like, I don't know. Some people are like, I don't know if I want to play a Metal Gear game without Kojima because that is his child. What's up?
You bring up a good point, Terrence. I forgot to mention that. I was like, man, boy, what a world would be in if this game came out and this remake was hot dog water, boy. Like, I kind of wish that Blue Point was doing it because I feel like they're the guys that like when it comes to the remakes, but you make a good. I forgot about them. Like, I was like, this is hype. Who making this, man? Because this game come out look like stick, man. It's gonna be.
They put out some type of press release and it shit just said the development team. I'm like, wait a minute.
if it looked like some Prince of Persia, like how they was doing the Prince of Persia remake, or some folk gonna be mad, bro.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's definitely. Trust me, Devin. I was in the same boat where as soon as I saw a snake pop out of the water, I was like, "Oh man, Metal Gear Solid is back." But then as I saw people talk about it and how Konami disrespected Kojima and how he left them, and if they make a game without him, then that's kind of them just kind of spitting in his face again. Yeah, after looking at it again, I was like, I don't know. This could definitely be a messy situation, but we'll see how it all plays out in the end. One of the other things I'm worried about is David Hayter coming back? Or are you going to have somebody completely different as Snake? Because
That is a damn good
I
question.
feel like I saw somewhere that they were bringing back the whole voice cast.
okay,
Okay.
well, if they're
Like,
doing
I
that, then that's at least a good sign. I'll put it that
Well,
way.
this is
Hmm.
Big Boss. I don't think David was the.
Are you sure? I thought David
sure?
voiced Big Boss too.
I know
Did he?
David B. I know
Well, no,
David
no.
B. Hater when I hear him now.
It wasn't
he voiced
until
Silas Lee.
it wasn't until 5 where they changed his voice to Keith Sutherland.
Yeah,
Okay.
Keeper Sutherland was making that game.
Yeah, so they changed the voice of Big Boss for whatever reason.
Because people were also like, "Wait, who is this?" Because he ain't got the eye patch. It's like, where's the eye patch? Is I don't know.
Yeah.
But speaking of David, if y'all remember in the game called Synapse, I think Synapse, the VR game, I'm pretty sure his voice was in that. Like the doctor, whoever, I'm pretty sure his voice.
You're
was in
actually right. I'm
Yeah.
looking at his Wikipedia right now. You're right. He is in that.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So-
well, that's neat.
3 days ago, a headline that appeared on multiple websites: Metal Gear Solid 3 will retain its original voice cast.
Okay. Well, that's at least that's a start. You know, we'll see how this we'll see how this development team does it. But other than that, Alan Wake 2, I mean, we already knew about that, but it's good to, for it to get a release date and, good to have Alan Wake back after all these years.
Oh yeah.
Two of the big surprises for me, I'm excluding Spider-Man because I mean, let's be honest, that's a standout
We
for
knew it was
everybody.
coming.
Yeah, I mean that game looks amazing. I don't need to hype it up any more than the trailers and everything I already have. But the two standouts for me, just because they were the big surprises, in a sense. One of them not really a surprise, but it was good to see it. The first one was Dragon's Dogma. I can't believe, Dragon's Dogma 2, excuse me. I can't believe they actually had something to show of that game because
I know.
what was it, last year when they showed up and they showed the t-shirt, it was like Dragon's Dogma 2 is in development.
Yep.
I thought that game was like 2025 or something, but then they showed up and it's like, oh, this is actually running? Wait, we have gameplay? What? Capcom's on some other one right now. But yeah, it was Dragon's Dogma. It looks good. Can't wait to see more of it. We didn't get any kind of release window at all, did we?
No.
Not that I remember.
Okay, well, who knows? Maybe it is 2025. And then lastly, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. It was good to see that, although, and Sage, I'm sure you're on the same mind as this. What's up with that release date? Like, side games, like, what are you doing? Like, that game has been, we've known about that game for so long. And I know that development on it hit a rocky phase and it kind of had to not start over in a sense, but change developers. But yeah, the fact that game is still not coming out this year, that's crazy. And it said winter 2023, but don't get fooled. That means winter 2023 essentially means 2024. So it could be within that January to
February,
March.
Yeah, March window. Or even like the end of March, very early April, like first week April. So we're not going to see that game anytime soon. But
Lord knows that's not happening.
Yeah, but those were the standouts for me. Yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2 for me was the biggest surprise just because I was not expecting to see that game at all. But yeah, those games for the most part, those are the ones that got me like, okay, well, Sony's got a little something going on, but I feel like that still wasn't enough to really push them over the edge in the way that they needed it to do.
Definitely not, like, because I've seen quite a few games that I was like, look, I expected a little bit. Like, so for me, there was like 5 games that stood out. The Plucky Squire, like everybody else said. At first, I wasn't really paying attention to that game. Then I went and listened to a breakdown, and they were hyping the game up. They were like, "Wow, this game looks amazing." I was like, "Did I miss something?" So I went back and looked at the trailer. I definitely missed something. I like tuned out mentally on it, and then when I looked at it again and saw what they were doing, I'm like, "Wow, this is incredible. This is dope." So like that kind of game looks fun, and I'd love to try that game out. I thought Cat Quest was cute. It was like a little fun game about like
what was it?
I love when that showed up.
Caribbean. What was the subtitle
for it?
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's like it showed up in the middle of like these, super serious games,
Oh yeah, that came right after Never, right?
Yeah, it came right after
okay.
Never.
Like, Sword of the Sea and the Talos Principle 2 and Never, and like you just watch this fucking giant ass wolf with deer antlers die, and you like sad as hell because she like hugging a little baby wolf deer, whatever the fuck. And you're like, oh man, this is sad. And then like here comes this little goofy ass cat, and he like, oh man, I'm finna go on an adventure, and he just immediately falls in the water. It's just like everything about it was cute. And it's like, just like the fact that like apparently it's a mobile franchise that has been pretty solid for the last few years, and so like I think I don't know if this is the first time they're coming to console, but it did look like they were really putting their all into it, a lot of effort into it. I mean, like not every game has to be like a AAA. Oh my god, the narrative, the story, all it. Not every game has to be that. This just looks like a fun time, so I fucked with it. Dragon's Dogma. Terrence said pretty much everything I was gonna say about that. I definitely thought that game was years off the way they showed it off last year. Like, because usually what you get is like a cinematic cutscene one year, and then a year or two later, depending on how far along they are, you'll get like gameplay, and then a year after that, you'll get like an actual release date. Excuse me. This was not that. This last year was like a dude in a t-shirt. Like they hyped up the Dragon's Dogma, the creation of the original Dragon's Dogma, and then at the end of it, you're like, oh shit, we're gonna get a trailer. And just like what Terrence did, nah, you ain't get no trailer. You just got a dude showing off the shirt. I was like, what the fuck? And I thought that game was years off. And then they showed up here, and it was like, not only was it not a cinematic cutscene, it was a lot of gameplay. Like that may have had the most gameplay other than in fucking Spider-Man. Like I was shocked. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, that was another one that but I mean, like when I saw it, like I literally screamed "fuck off" at the screen as soon as I saw like Relink Winter 2023. The first, I was like, oh man, fuck off, bro. Like it reminded me of Persona 5, if y'all remember that when it was first announced, and it was like
that was supposed to be a PS3 game.
Hell yeah, it was. It said winter 2013, and it took another 3 years to get it in America and 2 years in Japan. And like I'm at the point now with Relink, like I already know it looks good. I already know about the universe. I watched the anime, all that shit. Like I don't want to see it no more unless there's a date, not a release year, not a release window, a release date, month, date, year. I want all of that. And then of course Spider-Man 2, like as the show kind of got towards like the hour mark, it was like 55 minutes in. I like typed in the chat, or like maybe a little earlier, but I like typed in our Discord, and I was like, Terrence, if this show ended with like just the Last of Us, factions like the multiplayer and Spider-Man 2, how would you feel about it? And we were both kind of like, it'd be kind of mid. And then Last of Us wasn't there, and Spider-Man was. I was like, okay, thank God, because Spider-Man saved the show. Because without it, it's just like what a mess. Because like it ended, and like when they were like our last game, I was like, last, oh shit. And then like when that trailer started and it was just some fucking, I don't know, generic dipshit in the forest.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is Spider-Man 2? And then like all of a sudden I heard the word Sergey, and I was like, oh, never mind. Okay, we got it. And so like, Kraven shows up. You get the little look at Spider-Man and the Venom symbiote, Miles, and like the ability to switch characters. Some shit that Arkham should have did that Spider-Man figured out in the second game. Like Arkham should have did this by Arkham Knight, but whatever. The ability to switch between characters. The different villains, like a new set of villains that we're gonna face. We've seen 2 already. Actually we know of 3 because like they hinted at it with Venom, and so like you wind up with Venom, Lizard, Kraven. It's been good. This is clearly gonna be a much darker, more serious game than the last game, and that wasn't actually like any just sunshine and roses the whole game. So, I'll be honest and say this: Spider-Man 2 is probably the first time I felt like I needed a PS5. Like I'm not a big God of War fan. And like Final Fantasy 16, that looks cool, but like I can wait until it comes to PC. I know they've been trying to say, oh, it's gonna be longer than a year, but I doubt it. You probably get it within a year, 12 to 15 months, something like that. Maximum 18 months. I can wait that. Like I'm not that enamored with 16 and everything else. Like even Horizon, like you see like how Sony is very clearly willing to start bringing games over from PS5 and PS4 to like PC. I was willing to wait. I seen Spider-Man. I'm like, no, I don't want to wait. I want that game right now. So they did a great job with that. I wasn't even mad that it was so long because I was like, well, even though it's long, like I still like this needed to save. Like I needed that to save the show, to save the momentum of the show. If they hadn't gone out on that, I would have probably been like, man, this show is the worst show I've seen in a long time. I probably would have called it a 3 out of 10 or some shit like that. But like because Spider-Man 2 looked so good and had me so excited. It was like a 12-minute trailer that I've seen at this point, I think 4 times. And each time I'm like, it still looks great. And I'm still I'm still into seeing it. I don't tune it out because it just looks so good. I keep picking it apart. So like, those were my standout games. Will, what were yours?
My standout games, I'm like, we all got overlap here. I'm definitely down to see what was up with the Plucky Squire. I'm down for that, no doubt about it. Because I just enjoyed seeing it. I'm just like, you know what? It's a little different from what I'm used to dealing with. So when it hits the digital shelves or whatever, I'll get it. I'll give it a run. I'll play it through because I want to see what that's about. Another game in there because I was watching this with my other friends that I be playing multiplayer games with is a game called Teardown. And one of my friends is like, whenever we like play Fortnite, she always makes it her business to blow up the gas stations wherever we go, and then she'll just emote in front of it as it's blowing up. And I'm just sitting there like, why do you do this every time? Like alerting the whole nation that we over here. But she seen that and she was like, this is my type of shit here. And it just was so fun to just see like, oh, I get to drive this car through this building. And then once I drive it through this building, I jump in the pier, jump in the boat. Then I'm going to jump over the shark and then I'm going to do this and I'm going to blow all that up. It just looked interesting as hell to me. And Phantom Blade Zero. Now, I'm kind of in the same boat as Devin and Terrence. That game looked good. That game looked exceptionally good and looks crazy in motion. So I'm wary of it, but I'm so ready for it. But can I also ask this question here? Did anyone else think that might have been a FromSoft game before they even got to the name of it? Because I know it couldn't have just been.
I didn't think it was a FromSoft game, but it definitely had FromSoft inspirations to it.
Yeah, it definitely looked like, Souls like in that regard. But there's so many of those games now that it's hard to just pin them to FromSoft. Yeah.
It definitely kind of gave me some Sekiro vibes just a little bit.
Thank you. That's what it gave me. Especially when I seen one of the bosses like arms, and I was just like,
yep.
I was like, is this Sekiro or something? But then it got in the motion. I'm like, nah, Sekiro don't move like this. So that game looked kind of crazy. I'm finally glad to see Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I'm so glad to see that. When I finally seen it, I had like this sigh of relief just come over me. Like, finally, y'all are gonna say something. And then when the 2023 happened, and I'm just like, so somewhere in February. Okay, thank you. I'll take that. I was just like, I'll take that. I'm cool with that. And it's just weird. I don't know what's going on over there. It feels like they want to put this game out, but it feels like they also just like, should we put it out? Should we give it to them? It feels like they kind of holding over our heads, like we almost done, but I don't know if y'all really want this or not. So I might put it back in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? Just save it for Japan.
You gotta be quicker.
I don't know if you Gaijins want this game. So
hey man, if you're gonna give it English voice acting, you might as well give it to us.
Very true. Very true. But that's really all I have for like a lot of those standouts. And there is one that I'll say it stood out to me simply for the way it looked, because I was with Sage on that too. You know what I'm saying? The Noir City, the Square Enix sign, foam stars. I'm just like, hey, this look kind of interesting. But then when I realized what it might have been, I was like, uh-oh. Square might have made a little poopsie. So I don't know what's going on there. I'll talk about that in a little bit too. But we can continue on, man. I got all my standouts that I want. Phantom Blade Zero, Grand Blue. Of course, Spider-Man is there. I'm definitely going to make that my business to play that because I'm not going to miss out on the adventures of Evil Peter and Miles. So, yeah.
I'm trying to see Sasuke.
That is the voice actor, so I mean.
That is him. You're right.
Yuri Lowenthal definitely turned up for that. It's like, oh, man, you're bringing out all the Sasuke-isms.
I'm an Avenger, I will say, as y'all brought up Phantom Blade Zero a bunch, one of those Chinese/Korean games is gonna have to come out and be good at some point. Like
it is,
because like it's a lot of them, and like I'm rooting for them because I like the more developers we have putting out good games, the better. Not just for like me, but for like the industry as a whole. It makes for a healthier industry. So I'm rooting for them. But like it feels like we've seen a ton of those like games from China and from Korea where it's just like, oh yeah, you get to do everything in this game, and it's like. Okay, and in the game, I feel like very few of them have come out. The only one I can think of that has come out, and then in fairness, super successful, Genshin Impact, and then of course like all the games from MiHoYo verse. Like, what's up?
Tower of Fantasy, that's a Chinese development team, right?
Yeah, that's another one that came out.
Okay.
But I mean, those are all like multiplayer type games. Well, yeah. Our Fantasy is a multiplayer game. Genshin's a single player game, but it relies heavily on like gacha. And so like I'm gonna need to see one of these games come out, and it's just a straightforward single player game. You pick it up, you pay $70 or $60 or whatever it costs, and you play it, and it's just a top tier game. Like Once we get that, that's when I'll be able to believe in some of these games because like it's too much going on. Like Crimson Desert, I hadn't seen that yet. Like Crimson Desert showed up, I think was it the Game Awards 2021 or 2020? But like it showed up, 2-3 years ago, and we haven't seen it since then. It is supposed to show back up at Summer Game Fest, or at least like that's kind of what they're hinting at. But I'm gonna need to see one of these games come out and be good, and then we can like I won't be as wary about them. So
I get it.
I will say this. We've talked about this before, but Sony seemed to have like a larger focus on multiplayer titles, but some of them had kind of a generic feel to them. It is likely that if they don't instantly hit, they'll be forgotten within a year after their release dates. And so that brings me to this question that I wanted to ask. Do multiplayer games need to bring back single player campaigns to retain more interest in their IP? And so I'm going to take point on this because I do want to get everything out there in the open. This might seem like a weird question to some people. If you're a viewer and you're, primarily a multiplayer fan, I understand you being upset at somebody asking that. Before you get frustrated, let me put the question another way. Would you prefer multiplayer games to try to keep afloat by offering single player content to get a bigger audience earlier on? Or would you prefer that they just like, look, you do the best multiplayer you can. If you fail, oh, well, you just should have been better. Because like I feel like we getting into this very dog eat dog kind of world. Like Sony showed off 3 different multiplayer games that were supposed to be theirs. Fair Games they showed off, Concord, and then Marathon. And they were all different kinds of like PvP shooters. And it just feels watered down. Like, is there a reason for me to be invested in these characters? Like, I understand and respect the idea of Sony wanted to get into the multiplayer market, but like you got 3 games that are kind of similar in being like these futuristic PvP shooters, even though they aren't exactly the same shooter. They're a little too similar for me. And you still got Last of Us Factions coming, although that's up in the air right now. They kind of had to force people, but like still, like you still got that coming. And we've seen a lot of these games, these multiplayer games like Knockout City and Rumbleverse and Roller Champions, and they show up and they experience a little time in the sun, and then that's it. Like I was watching a breakdown from Kind of Funny, and one of the people on there, Andy Cortez, he brought up a great point. It's like it's really difficult to pull multiplayer fans away from the games they're already playing. Like it's something I've brought up before with Keem a few times in the past. A lot of multiplayer games, a lot of multiplayer genres rather, they reach what I like to call a saturation point. And after that, it is damn near impossible to break into them. Battle Royales, they had a nice little run where a new Battle Royale would show up and there would be space for them. Like they would, some people would be like, oh, well, Fortnite cool, but I'm going to check out this Apex. Apex is cool. I'm going to check out this Blackout. Oh, they got Warzone. I'm going to check that out. But like right around, I'm going to say Hyperscape, the genre just started to fall. Like that was the saturation point. Like you just like now they put out these, battle royales and they there, here 1 minute, gone tomorrow. Even like that one Vampire the Masquerade battle royale. What was it?
Bloodlines, wasn't it?
You say what?
Blood Hunt, I think.
Was it Bloodlines?
Blood Hunt? Yeah.
Oh, Blood Hunt. Okay.
That one was that had a nice little run for a few months. And then not too long ago, they was like, all right, that's cool, we done. Like we glad y'all liked it. We not adding nothing else to it. And if you're not adding new content to a multiplayer game, it's dead. So like they basically was like, we done with this game. Like, if y'all want to keep playing it, we'll leave the servers up. But other than that, fuck this game. And they might as well have said that. And like a lot of multiplayer games had this problem where like as soon as streamers stop getting checks, they playing it on their stream, hyping it up, like, oh, you want to play it? As soon as that shit stopped, that's it. With single player games, like most single player fans are greedy motherfuckers. As soon as they finish one, as soon as I finish a single player game, I'm like, I want another one. That's why I think a campaign can help. It's like I looked at Fair Games, that Watch Dogs heist looking game, and I was like, oh man, y'all setting up a world that sounds really interesting. And at first I was like hyped at the idea of being able to explore a world that looked like what they should have done with Watch Dogs after Watch Dogs 2. Like DedSec working together to take down a bunch of rich assholes and shit like that. I was hyped. And then I started seeing a bunch of the characters and the way that I've seen so many of these multiplayer trailers now that like you can tell without even getting a hint of gameplay. You look at it, you like, yep, that's a multiplayer game. Like I don't need to see no gameplay. The cinematic trailer alone is enough to let me know this is a multiplayer game. And as soon as I noticed that, I was like, yeah, I'm out. I just tuned out, and I think that's kind of sad. And I know a lot of people did the same, and we've not seen a stitch of gameplay from it. And you could call me closed-minded, but here's the thing. There are enough games out there now that I get to be closed-minded. If you want to pull people in, you're gonna have to be more creative than here's our version of an extraction shooter, and you got Escape from Tarkov out there already killing it. So like I think that they need to have some kind of like like a single player campaign. I don't think that needs to be the main focus, but I feel like that could like invest people in the world, and in like maybe you don't get everybody. Like me, I'm gonna play the single player version, I'm out. But like a lot of people, they play the single player version, they get invested in the world, and they be like, let me try this multiplayer out. So like I want to see what everybody else thinks. Devin, you're a heavy multiplayer fan. What do you think?
I've had this. I want to say I've maybe talked to you guys about this a few times before, and I've had this conversation just thinking about it in my head to myself about how the industry has changed with gaming. The first thing that comes to mind for me is like Modern Warfare, like Call of Duty, like probably one of the biggest multiplayer games of all time, and especially in that time, like Modern Warfare 1, 2, and like Black Ops 1. Like game was stupid, going dumb crazy out here in these streets. Like everybody and their mom was playing this game. And those games actually had really phenomenal single player campaigns. I know people like just like a lot of people get on and play online, but when those single players were actually really dope. I know over time it seemed like it just became more focused on the multiplayer, but every COD that I can remember playing had some crazy cinematic single player, was just like outstanding. Some crazy set pieces, always some like wow things happening, very cinematic.
Nobody's gonna forget the no Russian scene from Modern Warfare 2. That proves that point right there.
Yeah, I don't know what they was thinking about that one. People definitely remembered it. I think they did something similar to that in another one, I believe. I can't remember which one it was, but so that was a probably one of the best examples I can think of. And also, it seems like the shooters are still like the dominant multiplayer games. Like when you look at like most, like Destiny is a multiplayer game, it's a shooter. Most battle royale, all battle royales are primarily shooting games. Fortnite, Apex, Warzone. Another one I can think of, the Division. Most of them are shooting games. So shooting games kind of have a stranglehold on the multiplayer. I haven't played the Division. I don't know how the single player is in that.
For the Division,
yeah.
I mean, it's a heavy. Like I'm not gonna say that it's crazy good, but it's like solid. Like it's a nice meaty campaign that you can play. Like you can spend hours playing. So it's almost like a shooter RPG in that kind of way. So
yeah. I mean, I don't think it would be anything wrong with like adding a single player experience to like a predominantly multiplayer game. Because I mean, everybody's not gonna go into the game just like I want to just level up and get better and become like top of the leaderboards. Everybody's not like that. So to give those people something, if they, like Sage just said, if you do like the way the world looks, what they've set up, like cool looking characters, it's like give us something of some substance that's a single player experience, and I can enjoy that. And maybe it has like some extra content, or maybe like you play the game enough, you're like, oh, I kind of like this. Sage just said, let me go play the multiplayer. I might spend some time with it. But some people, like, we know how multiplayer games are nowadays. Like, people get the game, they crack it open, they figure it out. And like a lot of people just don't like hopping in and getting destroyed. Like, man, these folks are already out here getting 100 kill streaks, man. I'm out here I got 2 kills the whole match. So, that's kind of a very volatile thing for a person that doesn't like multiplayer. There's no way to escape it. I mean, there's really not a big emphasis on like skill-based matchmaking now. So you don't get matched up more than likely with the heavy hitters. So even when they try to incorporate stuff like that, sometimes it don't work out. For like Fortnite and I think COD, Apex, to try to do like some skill-based matchmaking. It's like, nah,
horrible right now.
You still finna go up against the Twitch streamer. So yeah, I don't really think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I guess you could look at it from a standpoint of like, if you see that game, you know what it is. Like, it's multiplayer, it ain't for you. Don't even touch it. And I mean, there are also other examples like The Last of Us. I remember. I think I played the multiplayer on Uncharted. Was it 2? Did the first game have multiplayer?
I don't think the first one did it.
It was not the first. Second one.
Yeah, the second one had added multiplayer. Yeah,
I remember playing that. And that was pretty solid. I know Tomb Raider's had it. The Last of Us. Some people don't like that aspect because we got a friend Dupree. He likes getting like platinums on games, And then when you have a game that like a single player experience, and then they do a multiplayer, and like say you said, when they shut a server down, so now you have stuff locked behind that you can't never get. So that's kind of tied into that, but it's kind of a tangent, but it's kind of tied into that because most games now have trophies. So I'm pretty sure most game multiplayer is gonna have some type of like, hey, get 100,000 kills, do this, and get some trophies or whatever. You know,
100,000
but yeah,
kills, good grief.
I don't really think anything is wrong with that, but you know, I do agree with Sage. Like you can like, there's a lot of other things you could like. There's become such a this formula, this cookie cutter formula of like when they put out games and these trailers, you can just tell. Like when it was like this was a multiplayer game. Like the way it's set up, we got the like you saw the one chick at first, and you saw the other. Oh, she got a team, so that's already
immediately.
You know,
as soon as I seen it, I was like, multiplayer game.
Yep. You know, they see another team of 3, then they throw a grenade. So it's like, yeah, this is more than likely gonna be a multiplayer experience. It's just like almost I really feel like the industry is making it too easy now to identify stuff. Like they don't even it's just like again, like I'll say about like games that come out that are bad, like you can go look at stuff and like get hints like this game gonna be trash. And it's like they don't even try to hide stuff sometimes. It's like and you can same thing, like it's gonna be multiplayer. Like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. There's one more example I had that had a good or single player experience and then had multiplayer, and I can't think of what it was. It just slipped my mind. I'll probably think about it later on. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You implement it right, give people this not interested in multiplayer, and then they might enjoy it. So
you know what, you brought up Call of Duty and they're like, I'm gonna be honest, that should show you something. I forget what game it was. They went like it was like they ran into some development issues, and so they went without doing a single player campaign in like one game. I think it was Black Ops 4. I think that was
it was that one.
Yeah, I think so.
It went without doing a single player campaign in one game, and immediately after that went right back to doing campaigns.
Yep.
That should tell you something. Like for all the people that just hop in the COD and they like, all I care about is multiplayer. I don't care nothing about the campaign. Like it's hella people to say that, but like Activision would have the numbers. Activision has all the information in the background of who plays campaign, who doesn't, how many people buy the game and never touch the multiplayer, and vice versa. And like the fact that they went without doing campaign for one game and immediately after that was like, yep, we're doing the campaign again. If the biggest first-person shooter of all, like that's still the biggest one, that's the juggernaut, so to speak, has a campaign, you might need to figure it out. And I'm not saying this to like indie developers, because of course you have like limited resources. Right. I'm not even really saying this to like AA studios where they just like, okay, well, we trying to put out a game that's a quality game, but like we ain't got like the marketing budget, and we ain't got like the ability to hire like a whole other outsource like 500 developers and all that. We ain't got that. I'm not saying that to them either. But these AAA studios, like all these Sony franchises, oh yeah, you're gonna need to come up off it. You're gonna need to figure it out. Will, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of try to piggyback off of what Devin said here when he had mentioned Call of Duty. There's another game under the same umbrella of motherfuckers that make it that kind of just gave their game the shaft because they took out the PvE part. Overwatch.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
Oversight.
Yeah, so it's funny because I've been watching the news behind that just to get this little quick tangent out the way. I'm watching the news behind it, and I get why a lot of people are mad because they're just like, hey, y'all were trying to sell us this and be like, hey, Overwatch 2 is going to have this plus the multiplayer so you can hop in here with your friends and do this PvE thing, which is kind of like a big campaign. And then when y'all done with that, go over there and play the 5v5 because it was 6v6 at first and they subtracted a tank from the lineup. So it's 5v5 now. But then they came up out of nowhere and said, hey, look, we realize we kind of can't do this. So, but we still gonna give it to y'all in bits and pieces as events, so y'all are still gonna see some of this. It just won't be in that package that we promised y'all at first. So now a lot of us are looking at it like, why in the fuck did you put a 2 behind it? Why did you sell us on Overwatch 2? This is just Overwatch 1.5.
Monetization.
So I know monetization because they had to drop the loot box thing, and now we on the battle pass thing now. And I hate that more than anything because I literally like can't stand that game. That game makes my fucking face hurt. I hate it sometimes. But to answer your question, I do think that multiplayer games should have some sort of single player content via a campaign, even something like skills challenges or something like that. Have them do something that they don't know how to do yet in the game and teach them to do things here and there. Like not necessarily a tutorial, but like I said, skills challenges, obstacle courses here and there, and incentivize doing that stuff too. Like, oh, you completed the campaign, here's a skin or like a couple skins, XP multipliers that can carry you over into multiplayer. So that when you start playing, activate them, get in there, start making this fun for them to play. Like get the casuals to start doing that. Hell, even some of the more hardcore or extreme players, they be like, oh, I want to get those multipliers because they not giving them out enough on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, so I can beat this single player campaign, get this skin, get a free character or a free rare item if I finish this off. That's the way I think they should do it. But instead, they're just constantly trying to chase a dollar and, as you say, chasing trends. And I think that's going to hurt a lot of multiplayer games in the long run. And I mentioned earlier with Foam Stars, Squaresoft. I said Squaresoft. Damn, I'm getting old. Square Enix.
Brother went back to 2000.
I went way back. Oh my lord, someone help me. Square Enix's little Splatoon copy. And I'm not even going to hold you. While I do like the way that game looks, and I think it's going to be interesting to play, I don't see that game making it past the first year. And it's going to be a problem more with Square than anything. Because while they do not have a terrible record with multiplayer games, and we ain't going to talk about Final Fantasy 14 because that right there was like the hardest reboot ever, and that game is thriving. But with something like that, I feel that they're going to screw it up due to either servers, net play, accessibility, and the number one thing that I do look at with all those multiplayer games that are coming out. My question is this: am I paying for this game, or is it going to be free to play when it hits the shelf?
That's the too.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'm worried about too. Am I going to be paying for this game and then paying for a battle pass behind it, or is it going to be free to play and I pay for the battle pass after the fact? Or would there be some type of like founders pack where I pay like $15? I get the game, but I also get access to the battle pass and like the first 10 levels of it. It's a lot of things to think about when you see all these multiplayer games that were showcased in the PlayStation Showcase. So it's they're in a tough spot right now. They're in a real tough spot with these multiplayer games because a lot of these games are going to die out in the first year. Some of them are going to get that streamer luck where like, hey, come play it, and then as soon as they done saying that, oh, the player base went from 10,000 or 15 or 20,000 daily down to 180, and you just sitting there looking at it like, So that didn't last long. What you got for me, Devin?
I want to say real quick for a phone party, I know what's gonna happen. Nintendo coming for them britches. Nintendo. hey, that phone party game. I see you look like a game we got, huh? Okay, yeah, I see. I just don't think Nintendo ain't no way they're gonna be like, oh.
I mean, honestly, I ain't even gonna hold you, Devin, because you right. Because Nintendo is known to be extremely petty when it come to even the slightest little slight against them. They would just be like, oh, so you just gonna drop this banana peel in my front yard? Bet I'm just gonna go ahead and burn your whole house down. So I'm just like, they will do something like that because as you've seen with Nintendo, the Dolphin emulator on Steam, they just like, hey, look, go ahead and hold that off right now. Y'all ain't finna put that on Steam. And then this thing here with Foam Stars and Splatoon, we gonna see how that work out. We gonna see because I got a feeling they finna serve them papers real soon. And then there's also the Nintendo 3DS thing where they just put out that update that pretty much stops any type of homebrew hacking, like current ones as of right now that they have. They just like, hey, look, we don't make money off it no more. We shut the shop down. Y'all ain't finna get no free games. So come buy some games. And I'm just like, no, how can we buy games if you shut the shop down?
Did shut the shop down.
So
games aren't even discounted.
That's what I'm saying. They don't discount shit. And look, I know we got some Nintendo fans that watch us, but sometimes fuck that company. Plain and simple.
Hey man, what's at the end of the night? Nintendo, they bought that dough. If you ain't got the dough, get the dough. If you ain't got the dough, man, it's just Nintendo.
Fuck Nintendo sometimes, bro.
I will say there's one thing that I noticed. While Sony doing all these goddamn multiplayer games,
Mhm.
How come they couldn't like? I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm not even a big fan of, but like, why not do a fighting game? Why not do like
Because
a
they
co-op
failed once, so
shooter?
they don't want to fail again.
Very
Nobody asked. I didn't say a
goddamn
platform
true.
fighter. Like you could make like a 2D or 3D fighter, and they was like,
That's-
I guess they failed. Like I mean, and you made that joke, and I've said it before. Like once Sony fail at something, they like, I ain't going back.
Nope.
They like it's like they terrified. Like, hey man, just like it's okay. Like try again. No,
Hold on. This is on my brain here. You said that, and you know what? They've been real buddy with Capcom. That kind of just hit me in the head right there when you said that. I was like, wait, these motherfuckers been real buddy with Capcom. Y'all can't talk to them in any sort of capacity. I know Street Fighter is what they really focusing on.
Shit, so you know.
I know they do, but still, like you couldn't just talk to them and be like, hey, who y'all got doing so and so for y'all, so that way we can talk something out here, so that way we can kind of go ahead and write a check and see what we can do for a game. Like, I feel like sometimes there's a lot of business steps that are fucking common sense, but I forgot it's a business, so you have to do dumb shit to make money or do dumb shit to lose a lot of money. Or smart shit to lose a lot of money.
Very good point.
Terrence, what do you think, man?
So it's funny you bring up fighting games because when I was listening, at first when you put this question in the Discord and I was looking over, I was like, I wasn't quite sure how to answer it. But then when you gave your spiel on it, I was thinking about it. And one genre that, you know, Will, Devin, you all are familiar with as well is, you know, fighting games and how they've had this struggle for the longest time. And in their case, it's kind of like, well, no, actually, I guess it is the same. Yeah, it's like fighting games have always been like a multiplayer experience, and they're just now really getting to the point where they're adding that single player experience. But it took NRS with Mortal Kombat, specifically Mortal Kombat 9, to really get the ball rolling to get everyone else to jump on board. Because once Mortal Kombat started making money, like Mortal Kombat Injustice with their big cinematic story modes that got you more immersed in the characters, learning more about them, essentially gave you the opportunity to do something outside of just fighting people online. And they saw all the sales that were coming in from that. Everybody else was like, oh, so we need to do that too? It's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, you should have been doing that a long time ago. And then there's been many failed attempts at it. You know, Capcom has had two with MVCI, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and Street Fighter V, where those story modes were definitely on the lackluster side of things. But
you gotta at least try.
Yeah, at least they try. And with Street Fighter 6, it looks like they finally, not to knock on wood, hopefully it'll be the experience that we want from a single player experience from a fighting game. But yeah, fighting games have had that problem for the longest time as to whether or not you should add single player to it. And you would think it would be a no-brainer because, like you said, Sage, single player gets people talking. It's like, though you're learning more about the characters, you have an actual narrative, you're getting invested in the world. You would think this kind of stuff this kind of stuff is what gets people talking about a game for years to come. Is why almost 20 years later, we're still talking about OG Final Fantasy VII. You know, that game's narrative is legendary, and there's still many theories as to what happened here, what happened there that people are talking about to this day. And with multiplayer stuff, you don't quite get that. And to Will's point about Overwatch, that's one of the things that people were begging for with Overwatch, is that they wanted that kind of story mode to really flesh out the world and the characters. Because up until this point, we had just been getting that stuff through YouTube videos and the stuff that they release outside of the game. So it's like, why not take that kind of stuff and put it in the game for people to experience as just a full-fledged story mode? And Blizzard fumbled the ball on that one.
Boy, didn't.
Huh?
Boy, didn't they?
Yeah, just yeah. You think that it would be? What'd you say, Devin?
They overestimated.
Yeah. You just would think that it would be a no-brainer to incorporate more single-player stuff into these multiplayer games, and I get it. That the point is that most people, as you say, they do get on single player, but there's still that strong audience that wants that single player experience to try that out, and then maybe they might jump into the multiplayer, or they might not jump into the multiplayer at all. That's another thing with fighting gamers.
At least you got one more sale.
Yeah, a sale is a sale at the end of the day. However you pull them in, you pull them in. So I don't know. I don't know why more of these multiplayer games don't add single player. I mean, I think that they should. I think that it could do nothing but benefit. I mean, imagine if you had GTA Online with no GTA, like the narrative of GTA, like completely just taken out. It wouldn't be the same. You know, Red Dead Redemption 2, all the multiplayer, none of the narrative part of it. It would just be a completely different experience, and one that I don't think people will be talking about as much. Like something like GTA 5 wouldn't be. We're on 5, right? Or are we on 6?
Yeah, we're on
Yeah,
5. They're
Okay, we're on
reaching
5.
their
I was trying to remember
It
were we
should
on
be
6
on
or were we on
They-
5.
It should be on 6 by now. Yeah.
They are reaching their 10-year anniversary in like September for that game.
That's crazy. That is definitely crazy. That was a PS3 360 game, and look where we are.
Mhm.
Wow.
Still there.
Yeah, but anyway, imagine if that game was just released as GTA Online and you didn't experience any of those characters from the regular narrative perspective. I don't think it would have nowhere near the amount of staying power that it has had over the course of this decade. So
Right.
I don't think every single multiplayer game needs to have a single player experience, but like you said, Sage, I don't think it could hurt. Like I think that's a good way to draw in more of an audience and build people's anticipation for like future games. And if they want to do the multiplayer, then they can. So, you know, that's the way I see it. I'll go ahead, Devin.
The continued talk of Overwatch is making me remember a game that might have been one of the catalysts for maybe making people think like we shouldn't do a single player experience. Y'all remember when Battleborn came out and Overwatch came out like right
They
next to
did
each
cut-
other?
They came out with yep.
And it basically
remember
technically
that.
the same type of game, but Battleborn was being sold off. Well, this got a single player experience, and it's like everybody's like, we ain't playing it. We play Overwatch. So I don't know if that over the years is like, man, that we don't want to be a Battleborn. Like Battleborn, like came out and just died.
Yeah.
It's
Like
I'll say this in
Boy.
regards to Battleborn. I think the biggest difference between it and Overwatch were just the characters. Like people were far more interested in Overwatch's characters and the lore that was building up behind them than whatever Battleborn had going on. Because like to this day, like you mentioned Battleborn, I can't think of a single character from that game. I don't even play Overwatch, and I've seen that game enough to know Tracer. It's funny, I'm blanking on names now, but I know them when I see them.
Mercy, Zarya.
Yeah,
Mercy, Zarya, Widowmaker.
Who's
you
the
know,
who's the gorilla character?
Winston?
Winston, yeah. Like I said, I know them when I see them, but just
all that shit.
yeah, like those characters at this point, they become icons in the video game industry. And a game like Battleborn, I don't remember anybody. I think there was a ninja, maybe.
remember they had like a mushroom, like a samurai war. I think he might have been a ninja character.
Yeah, but
A mushroom guy.
I mean, the counter to what Devin just said is like Titanfall. That came out without a campaign, and they hyped it up, and everybody was like, "Yeah, but it ain't got no campaign. It's just multiplayer." And then, sure enough, with Titanfall 2, the one thing they made sure to add was goddamn single player campaign,
Yep,
which they say was really good.
Mhm.
It just came out at the wrong time. Like it came out sandwiched between like COD and Battlefield, and I don't know what the fuck they was thinking when they did that. But like people, that was like the big complaint about the first game. Like we want a campaign, and then they made sure to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What's up, Will?
And with the Titanfall 2 campaign, that actually carries over into Apex because there are characters related to that campaign in Apex. And I think they were actually planning to do something single player for Apex. And they came out and said, yeah, I don't think we got that ready for y'all. I don't think we ever will. So we back here again.
You got the fans begging for a Titanfall 3 or some kind of Titanfall, whatever, just anything Titanfall, more of that story and more of that world. And they like, nah, we straight. Just keep buying Apex, the battle passes and shit.
Yeah. I do agree
so
that.
I do
sorry, go ahead.
No, you good. What's up?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I ultimately think that's something that more developers should look into, is that add single player to these multiplayer games and see how it pans out. But at the same time, I get it. Like gaming, it's so expensive. Like development is so expensive now that, you know, doing a single player in addition to a multiplayer, if that's not the vision from jump, then adding one or the other later is definitely a challenge. So I do get it. I get that it's not as easy as like, flipping a switch. It's like, hey, put in the single player, put in the multiplayer. It's like that's something that you have to have the vision for from jump. Or in the case of like Last of Us, it's something that's like slowly planned out over time and eventually put together to be dropped whenever that comes out. So, we'll see.
Who knows if it comes out now?
Yeah,
but I mean, like,
right.
I would definitely not say like, oh, you got to add it. It's got to be something that is part of the launch. Like, okay, well, we're also going to have a single player campaign in addition to just like, oh, the PvP mode. And you can hype up the PvP mode and let everybody know like this is going to be what the main game is, but there is a single player campaign for you. Even if it's like PvE and it's like co-op, like that's still better than just like, oh man, you go out there and you got to fight, other players and shit, because not everybody wants to do that. And I don't know, like, if you spend all this time setting up your world and like supposedly creating this world that people want to spend time in, the fact that you just don't have any ideas for a single player campaign is kind of crazy to me. As soon as I start hearing some nonsense about emergent gameplay and players will make their own story and all that bullshit, I'm like, all right, man, I know you ain't got no ideas. You just like really just trying to cash in on the trend and see what you can get, see how much money you can get out. Maybe the game is good, maybe it's not. You just want to see if you can get, a little bit of extra money off the multiplayer fans. But like a lot of them, they already own a game they already love, and they've been playing it for months, if not years, and they not gonna just be torn away from it. So hope you got a better plan than just,
Yeah.
So the next question I wanted to ask, and this was kind of like a last minute addition of sorts, or I think it was just a last minute omission on my part, but I'm adding it back in now.
Okay.
Can Microsoft, does this PlayStation Showcase open the door for Microsoft to make a comeback? I think at one point, we all thought Microsoft was in the hole and were doubtful as to whether or not they could come back. Phil Spencer said if Starfield was like an 11 out of 10, it wouldn't lead to people selling their PS5s. And I know the internet has like really weird reading comprehension and they dragged him for it. But I got what he meant. He was saying that great games cannot win the console war when Sony's already that far ahead. And it's like, to use an analogy, it's like basketball. It's not enough to hit your shots when it's already like the other team got a big lead. You at some point have got to hope that the other team starts missing open looks. And like, this feels like that. Like, this feels like they was missing like bricking shots and missing open looks, getting hella air balls. They're like, oh, we got fair games. And everybody's like, what the fuck is that? Like, where's Ghost of Tsushima 2? And they like, nah, we ain't got that. But we got Concord. I don't even know what this game is. Like, Concord, it looked cool for like 10 seconds. And then it was like, coming sometime. And I'm like, what is this game? Like, you didn't say anything. Like, when you miss like that, it feels like after Redfall, I felt like this PlayStation Showcase was gonna make Xbox look bad. But now I'm looking at Xbox knowing they got to showcase themselves in 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, this is the opportunity. Like, this is where you can make that big swing. Like, oh, they got their guard down. You can make that shot. You can catch them in the jaw if you want. Like, if Starfield looks good, you've got Avowed, you've got Fable, you've got Contraband, you've got all these and it's hella developers that I'm leaving out. You've got the Indiana Jones game you're working on. Like, you got all these games that you have in somewhere in the chamber. Perfect Dark, all that shit. Like, where is it? Because if you show off some of that, you might be able to make a little like run. So I'm kind of like, I feel like they could definitely, like, this is the time. Like, and I mean, like, to be fair, Microsoft, like, at least the PR, they understood, because like as soon as that showcase was over with Terrence put that tweet in the chat, it was just like, oh man, these are great games. It was just a selection of games that showed up.
These are great games. We got them too.
Exactly. Like, the PR knows. So like, hopefully, like, the people that's in charge of making like the showcases, hopefully they know, like, hey man, this is the time. So Devin, what do you think? Can Microsoft make a comeback now?
I think they can, because I honestly didn't think that this PlayStation Showcase was going to be, as we said, mid. It was just young folks call it mid. So unless they do like just announce like Game Pass Omega, or they announce like Redfall 2 or something like that, then I think PlayStation still, they'll be all right.
Redfall 2?
Redfall 1.5.
No, the sequel will just be called Red Falls. Like, put an S on it.
Red Falls. We in Iowa.
They do have some game like Sage just mentioned Starfield. That's one that's like their big. They're banking on that one right now. Like that has to be the one that comes out and like I know he talked about it. If it made 11, it doggone needed to be an 11 when it come out. That one, I've even seen people like mention about Scalebound, like some rumors about that coming back or something like that.
That ain't coming back. That ain't coming
I mean, I tell you what though, if it did, now that if they pull something like that, I'd be like, all right, Xbox, but don't do what you did last time you showed us all them years ago, and it was like, no, we ain't that game. Everybody, I remember I was hyped for that. And it's like that's one of those things when people talk about. I know this is always a topic. They talk about the juxtaposition and the war between the Xbox and the Sony fans. It's like I like video games, but the reason why I always had PlayStation consoles is because Microsoft's always doing stuff like that. We got Scalebound. And so I'm like, this jump look fire, man. It's like Devil May Cry with dragons. It's like, well, you ain't gonna never play it, bro. Like. That could have been somebody could have been like, I'm buying the Xbox right now because it's no. Well, you bought one, we appreciate it, but you ain't gonna play Scalebound.
Ain't the only game that canceled. What was it? Phantom Dust that canceled.
Yeah.
Fable Legends, I think they canceled that.
There's
too.
a lot of stuff that I remember Xbox.
All in the same like 2-year time span. They just like announced some games and they wound up canceling.
What was that game? Aeon Flux. It was some game, some legendary game they announced was supposed to be this big game. I think it was like Xbox, and it just never came. No, not that one. Not that one. It's some sci-fi type game. I want to say it had some Aeon or something in the name, but I remember that game. It never came out. So I'm just over the years I've been seeing a lot of Microsoft just make these hype games and stuff and just don't ever come out. You give us CG trailers that ain't the actual game. I mean, well, everybody does that now, so I can't really just put it on Microsoft. But y'all do have, Microsoft has a good chance to come in. If they bring out some heavy hitting stuff that they showed the showcase, they got a chance to be like, hey, man, all that smack y'all was talking about us, man, look, PlayStation came out there and laid a brown egg. So, here's our golden egg, I don't know. It just depends, man, because I'm still looking at Redfall a little sideways. I'm just like, man, y'all got to do something because you can't have your flagship title be trash. Then the next game that was supposed to be like, this is one of our new IPs is going to be leading the forefront. No, Red fell behind everything else. And now you had Hi-Fi Rush, which was a sleeper hit, not a sleeper, but just a surprise hit, should I say. And now you got Starfield. That's Starfield, the one people waiting on. Please let this game be good. Because if I'm telling you, man, if it ain't, I don't know, man. But y'all got a chance. I got an opportunity. Sony came out there and graciously laid that brown egg. So you can come in there and be like, hey, man, we got something for you. But if you don't, man, I don't know, man. I guess everybody's going to be, I guess Nintendo going to be like, you come play Zelda. Yeah, that's what you should do.
That's the only thing they can tell you because Zelda, that's the only game that we know they got coming.
Yeah, I mean, but you know how people are about Zelda. Then they get like 12s out of 10s and 13s out of 10s. It's like, hey, man, forget all the Xbox and Sony stuff. Come play Zelda, man. Also, I forgot what was it? It was the Towers of Gaswood. Somebody called it Tears of Sony.
The game that was at the showcase.
Yeah. It did kind of have a
Sony.
I was like, okay, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I really do think they do have a legit chance. They just got to come out. They can't do what they did with the developer direct because that was like super mid. I'm tired of seeing Forza. Come on, I get it. I love racing games, but my gosh, we can't have a racing game be in the forefront of a console, bro. Like, you got to have something else in Forza, bro. If you show me Forza again when the showcase, I'm like,
what?
All right,
it's gonna be there because they got two different Forzas,
bro. Like
Motorsport and Horizon.
I mean, I get it. Like that's one of their flagship games, but it's like, bro, like a racing game. I'm not trying to see it in no new. I want to see what racing games can do in a new generation, but that's not all I'm trying to see, bro. You got to give me something else. So we know y'all got Starfield. You. They have to show some on that. They got to show like some extensive gameplay, like more than they showed last time.
That's part of the plan. It's like they're going to do the Xbox game showcase, and then when that's over, right afterwards, they're going to show like 30 minutes of Starfield.
That's why I was going to say they need to do what Sony did with Spider-Man for this showcase because we thought they were going to do that with the developer direct. And wasn't Redfall last thing they showed at the developer direct?
Yes.
Am I mistaken? So they have to do like what Sony did with Spider-Man. That's one thing they have to do. And you just got to make sure y'all got some heat, man. I don't know what y'all got cooking, but y'all gotta bring some heat, man. Y'all got an opportunity, but you know, you only got one shot. Do not miss this chance to blow your opportunity. So it only come once in a lifetime, man. So
I will say this. I feel like people are a little too hard on Xbox, but it's just how can I say this? It's a sign of like what gamers really value in video gaming. Cause like they had some hit games, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Forza Horizon 5, Age of Empires 2. Nobody cares about those games, like, because everybody wants the same. Like, if I'm not punching somebody in the mouth, I don't want the game. If it's not heavy cinematics, really AAA, quadruple A, all that shit, they don't want it. Like all those games that I named got hella high ratings. Like, we talking about 80s, high 80s, 90s. Hi-Fi Rush is the only one that people kind of cared about, and even that, you feel like I've seen people kind of like the stars started to fade a little bit. Outside of the people that like really value gameplay, like everybody else is like, hey man, where's y'all like super cinematic, Red Dead, Last of Us, Starfield? Like we need something like that. Like that's why everybody's looking at Starfield. Because like when you start like prioritizing genres outside of the genres that are already like, the automatic likely to win game of the year type genres. Like when you start prioritizing those genres, like people don't care. Like Pentiment. That game came out last year and got like hella high scores and nobody gave a shit. So like the idea that Xbox is on the back foot, like they on a back foot kind of because like Redfall is the kind of game that most gamers want. It involves some guns, it involves some violence, it's like open world, it's like that type stuff. And it got like a fucking, I forget what it's at now, like a 65 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It was like a hella low Metacritic score. And suddenly everybody was like, see, we told y'all Xbox been trash for some years. And it's like, they haven't been trash. They just haven't been putting out the genre of game that you want. And like, even though that is the case, like it's too late now. Like you can't reprogram people like to care more about like flight sim games and racing games. Like that time has passed. Like good luck. So like you gonna have to put out games on that level. But yeah, Terrence, what do you think? Can Xbox come back after this? I won't say Microsoft.
I think they can. It really just depends on what we see next month. That I echo a lot of what Devin said, is that now that Sony has dropped the ball in a sense, Xbox has the opportunity to scoop it up and, hit an easy layup. I mean, I think that this really should be a no-brainer. I think honestly, a lot of the showcases next month had the potential to one-up Sony in a sense. Yeah, there's a lot of games that Xbox has on the table that they haven't really talked about or review or they haven't gone in depth on in quite some time. So next month is the opportunity to do so. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. I think that Xbox definitely has the opportunity to kind of put themselves in a better light. And I think Sony does too. I mean, this isn't the only showcase or like state of play or whatever that Sony's going to have this year. I think after the response to this one, they know they have to bring the heat next time, or at least maybe condense the show and make it where every game that they show is a banger instead of like doing an hour-long show and only like maybe 5 out of the 30 games are like headline worthy or something like that. But in Xbox's case, so we hadn't really, outside of the developer direct we got this year, we haven't really gotten a really big showcase from them. Yeah, now is the time for them to step it up and show that they can be on equal footing with Sony. Because Sony has been selling the most consoles, I wouldn't immediately necessarily declare them like the winners so far. Because I mean, we still have a ways to go in this generation, like we really do, and we'll just have to see how it goes. So, yeah, I'm waiting. I'm looking forward to next month. Next month is going to be crazy. It's going to be so much gaming news, and hopefully it'll be some good stuff and not along the lines of this previous PlayStation showcase. Because if the showcases that are coming up in June, if they're like the PlayStation showcase, man, 2023, 2024 is looking kind of rough.
Kind of dim.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be that bad. I do think Jeff and this is weird to say, like I feel like the Summer Game Fest usually is about the level of what we get from what we got here from the PlayStation Showcase. Like usually when we get to a Summer Game Fest, it's like got one or two heavy hitters, and then like a bunch of games where you like, oh, I kind of don't care about these. But like, and it's like a really long show, and like I don't know, I feel like Jeff might have a few more because he's already got Microsoft lockdown. Mortal Kombat 1 lockdown, and then ideally you'd hope that he has like something like like Wonder Woman. Like I remember he showed that off at Game Awards like 2-3 years ago, and like hopefully, I mean like it feels like it's about time for that game to show back up. That studio, the last game they put out was Shadow of War in 2017, so that was a long time ago. And so like if that game's coming out next year, for instance, I feel like it would be about that time to start hyping that game up. So I would hope that we saw that. Will, what do you think, man? Do you think Microsoft has a shot? Like, what game would they need to have? Like, is it Starfield that they need to hit out of the park? Is it Indiana Jones because they got the people I think working on was it Wolfenstein? They used to do Wolfenstein and now they working on Indiana Jones. Is it Perfect Dark? Is it like what is it? What do they need, man?
Okay, so first off, to answer you, Microsoft definitely has a chance to come back here and just straight counterpunch. They have it. They have the chance right now to do it. And to also answer you again, the game that I think that really needs to hit it, I feel like Starfield is the given. If they really want to knock it out of the park here, it would really, in my opinion, maybe from even a nostalgic standpoint, it would have to be Perfect Dark since it's been so long since we last seen Perfect Dark and the leading lady from that game being anything aside from her being, I think she was in like what the rare replay pack they had for like the system. I think Perfect Dark was on that, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if they can knock it out of the park with that and maybe another game that they have coming up, yeah, Microsoft has a chance to like literally tear Sony off the throne because as of right now, the only thing they have cooking was that tweet, and I won't lie to you, that I don't know, man. I smell some seasonings coming off of that one, and
It's about the one had like Killer Instinct on there.
No, it's about the one Terrence posted.
Oh, that one.
Man,
okay.
Yeah, he was like, man, this is a great lineup of games. I'm just like, yeah, it is. I see it. So I think Xbox and Microsoft have a chance here. They do. It's just they have to make sure these games hit their marks. Starfield is a no-brainer. It has to go crazy. If it doesn't do well in those reviews, I don't know what to say for Microsoft at that point. I really wouldn't know what to say for that one. And in the case of Perfect Dark, I feel like if that don't do well, especially with it being from the same era as like the James Bond shooters, like The World Is Not Enough, Golden Eye, all those 007 games coming from that era, if they don't hit well with those, Xbox kind of shot themselves in the foot at that point. What's up, Terrence?
Now, here's my question. Isn't Perfect Dark kind of in development hell right now?
As of right now, yeah, I would believe so.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. Because I think it's, what was it, the Coalition?
Yeah, it was the Coalition.
And then they had to tap Crystal Dynamics to help them with the development of that project. Which, I mean, is kind of normal, teaming up with other developers. A lot of projects tend to be outsourced or have, like, heavy outsourcing, like the days of just, one developer does the whole game. That shit basically in the past at this point. But, I mean, I don't know, like, we haven't seen it since its reveal, which,
I don't remember when it was.
It's been a while.
2019?
It's been a while since that reveal.
Wait, what year did you say?
You said 18 or 19.
28. It's been that long?
It has.
Damn.
I'm just guessing. Like, I'd have to, like, check to be sure.
Damn, if it's been that long, that's crazy. That's another thing, too. Yeah, again, Xbox, they definitely have a lot of stuff that they're sitting on that I think had been announced, but they just have not put out like that.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, that's going to be kind of holding them back, I feel, is that they have stuff that they're sitting on. And we're just kind of like, man, I remember when y'all told us about this. When y'all going to tell us some more?
All right, I lied. It was 2020.
Okay, it was 2020.
That's still 3 years. And, like, I don't know, like, unless you just started development when you reveal that game, it would have to have been, like, 4 years maybe since that game came out. By now, you should be ready to show something from it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But also, what Terrence said, they have a lot they're kind of just sitting on at this point, and they hadn't told us much about it since then. Since they've like maybe shown us something like a title or maybe even a short CG or something, they haven't told us much about it or shown us any gameplay. So I think that right there can also hurt them along the way too, where it's just like, man, thanks for showing us all this new stuff. Now, what about this other stuff you hadn't shown us since XYZ? So I think that'll hurt them alongside maybe them helping themselves with what they currently want to push to the forefront. Because, like I said earlier, sometimes you have to make smart decisions to make money, and sometimes you have to make dumb ones to make money too. So there's something there for them to do, but there's also something there to hurt them as well.
And the only thing I'll tell you that I don't want to see from them, I don't want to see this next conference has like that nonsense they did at the start of the last conference where it's like, oh, well, everything you see here will be available in the next 12 months. First off, you couldn't stick to that because Starfield missed the date, Redfall missed the date. Well, actually, Redfall made it, but like Starfield missed that date, Forza missed that date, Forza Motorsport, and then like Hollow Knight missed that date. So like you lied, and I mean like that's not always in your control, but what is in your control is like don't limit yourself to 1 year. Like that time, like Nintendo maybe could do that and probably is going to do that if the rumors are true. If we don't see any games from them for the remainder of the year, like very few games for the remainder of the year, Nintendo could possibly do that, but you can't do that because like you don't. There's no promise that you're going to have a bunch of games coming out in 1 year to just be like, oh, we're just going to show off this year. It's a banger year. And then, next year we'll show off another year. You don't have that going for you. So like at the very least, I need to see 18 months, the next fall, not the coming fall of E3, but like the next fall. I need to see that at the very least. So like whatever you got coming, not just, Starfield and Forza, because I think that's all that's left for this fall is Starfield and Forza. But I also would need to see what you have coming next year. So, like, is Avowed gonna make it? Contraband. I thought Contraband looked really cool. Well, I thought the idea behind Contraband was really cool. You got the people from Avalanche Studios, and they're making like this co-op heist game. And I'm like, all right, that's like kind of what I wanted from Uncharted, where you get like, 4 characters teaming up, going on heists around the world. Like, if you want to do something like that, I could get with it. So, like, hopefully we get something like that. And then, of course, you got other studios like In Exile, the people that do Wasteland, or like the people that Compulsion Games, people that do We Happy Few. They got hella game studios that they could show. Oh, okay, well, this is what they've been working on all this time. Like, I would definitely make sure to have at least half my studios. Like, all right, you got to show what you got coming up. Last question, and this isn't a big one. Like, you can, y'all ain't got to. There's no need for long answers if you have like something in your head that's cool. But should Sony do another PlayStation Showcase this year? I saw like some insiders saying that there were like several games that they held back instead of like putting them at the show.
I heard about that. I swear, bro. I heard that. I was like, what?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but like I don't know. It just because like that Persona game, like the rumor of that Persona 3 remake and shit like that. There probably are some games, and then like of course, Sony has some other studios that just like they didn't show up like you expected them to show up, and they weren't there either. So. I don't know, like, is it worth it for them to do another show later this year? And then let me ask you this. Did this show damage the idea of a PlayStation Showcase brand? I don't think we've had this conversation a lot, but I know a lot of people online were like, oh, this isn't a state of play. This is a PlayStation Showcase, so it's more likely to be good. And we got it. It was like
I've
mid.
definitely seen that.
And so, like, now I'm like, well, is that where we at? Are we at the point now where people look at this and this is like, oh, yeah, well, this is going to be the PlayStation Showcase is like a toss-up as to whether it's going to be good or not. So, like, what do you think, Will? Like, do you think they should do another one? And do you think the brand is damaged?
Okay, let me say this. I've been split because I read that question 3 times and I had to ask myself, what could possibly come of that if they did another one? Because I felt like if they did another one, I'll give you this. For one scenario, let's say yes, they do another showcase. I say get them around October, November. They come tell us something around that time frame. It could be them, everybody get together and start talking about their things, all those different rumors from, like you said, the Persona 3 remake and all these other things that they could have in the back. Yeah, like stuff like that, like stuff they got sitting in the back, just sitting in the closet, ready for them to dust it off and be like, all right, y'all, here we go. I feel like while that would be cool, at the same time, I feel like some people would look at that showcase and be like, this is damage control for what y'all did earlier this year, ain't it? Y'all call yourselves trying trying to charm us here with all this brand new, fresh, sparkly shit you knew we wanted, but you couldn't show us that before. I wonder what happened back then, huh? Explain yourself. But then there's also another case of if they don't do it, then you looking at them being like, man, PlayStation really didn't do shit this year. That's a damn shame. So it's really hard for me to say whether they should or not. It really is, because there's two ways to look at it for me. Like, one could be damage control and the other one could be like, damn, they just don't want to tell us nothing. They just scared to throw a date. Like you said earlier, what they did with this showcase, where they were just like, hey, it's all coming out 2023, 2024, 2025, 2020X. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just putting in stuff and just telling us, hey, we got games. But I can't really tell y'all when they coming out, but they getting done. We're in the studio right now as we talk to you. So I don't know, man. Sony could do another one, and maybe it'll make some people happy. But it's a hard case for me, man. So y'all may have a more definite answer than me, but I feel like it's 50-50. Either you could sit on this here and be like, we did what we were supposed to do, or y'all could put another one out and be like, we sorry, we had more, we just didn't, we didn't have the money or the time, you know what I'm saying? We sorry. So yeah, that's the way I feel about it.
I don't know, man. I feel like it's, even if you could call it damage control, because I definitely, like, if it in September or October they showed off another showcase and it was like, this one was the good showcase, I would definitely be like, why didn't y'all just show this earlier? But I would still also, if it was good, I'd be like, oh, well, I mean, it kind of don't matter. Like, I'm glad that y'all showed us something. I'll take that. So, like, I mean, I feel like you're going to have to take your lumps one way or the other. Like, if you have a good showcase later in the year, you're going to take your lumps for that. If you have no other showcase for the remainder of the year, you're going to definitely take your lumps for that. I'd rather take my lumps for doing something good than for something bad. Terrence, what do you think?
It's interesting because for the longest time, I feel like Xbox was the one that didn't really have like a name for their showcases. They just kind of called them whatever, and they just come out and show you the games, and that's it. Nintendo has always had Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Treehouse, and Sony would just be state of play. They had PlayStation Experience at one point, and then they had what was the other one? Oh, shoot.
PlayStation Meeting.
Meeting.
What was it? PlayStation Experience, the one that used to be in December? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So Sony's kind of like gone back. Yeah, like Sony's kind of gone back and forth with the names outside of State of Play. And to be honest, I mean, I don't really care what it's called as long as the stuff that's there is worth watching. That's the thing. It's like, if you're going to say, oh, this showcase is going to be an hour, that hour better be worth my time. I'll put it that way. I mean, should they do another one this year? I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, whether they call it State of Play or PlayStation Showcase in September, October, whenever they do it, as long as they bring the heat that they didn't bring here, I think it's fine. Will they get some criticism for not bringing some of that heat to the one for this month? Sure, but
yeah,
you're just gonna have to hold that L. It is what it is. You brought the showcase to us, and it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, or it wasn't as good as you kind of made it out to be, and yeah, you just have to accept that. But at the end of the day, as long as the games that they're bringing are of quality and they bring more people into the PlayStation brand, then that's what matters. So, should they have another? What are you gonna say, Will?
I said they're gonna be bringing in the cupcakes of sorriness.
Yeah. Should they have specifically another PlayStation showcase? As long as they have something to show, I'll put it that way. Just don't sit here and say, yeah, we got an hour of games to show you, and none of those games are really worth our time other than maybe like 5 or so. Like, yeah, just don't do that. Like, if you're going to do that, just make it a State of Play. So, yeah, maybe that's my answer, is that if you're going to do a PlayStation showcase and the standard for that is usually going to be like longer than a State of Play, make that time worth it. Otherwise, just stick with a State of Play.
I think that's a good answer. And just like the idea of condensing down like the most important games is always a good idea. Evan, what do you think?
I don't think. I think it would be good if they did something. Well, I would say I wouldn't have a problem if they did like they had another showcase. They had like Ruben Studdard come up at the beginning, and he's like, I'm sorry for that showcase before, and I ain't gonna mess
Dang,
up
man.
no more.
You taking us
Yeah,
way
what a
back. Ruben
name.
stuttered. I like, good
I
lord.
know, right? What a callback.
That's
you
a
know?
name I ain't heard in a
2024.
long time.
If they brought him out, before another showcase, I'll be fine with that. But I actually, in all seriousness, like Terrence just said, the thing I thought about most, I think they just weren't really focused. Like they're so they were kind of scattered with this showcase. They need to focus down, eliminate some. If you don't have any gameplay, I really think in this age we're in, we need to stop with the CG stuff. Now, if it's like you're just showing a teaser for a game, it has to be done right though, because you can't run into the Concord things where it's like it's almost so little. It's like what's going on. At least with fair games, we know what's going on. We at least know what the game is. Concord is like what the heck is going on? It's like somebody in space. We saw a hamburger in hyperspace. What the
It's a PvP shooter, but that's about all I know.
man? Well, I didn't get none. I got just one of them RTS and space games. I didn't get none of that from that trailer. But I just think like Terrence said, focusing on what's supposed to be there. Like if it's a showcase where you showing off your heavy hitters, do that. Don't add any filler. I forgot to mention even like the whole Gran Turismo thing. I think it was a waste of time. I think showing to me, this is me personally. I think the Gran Turismo thing, if they had to show like a new game and show the movie trailer in tandem with it, but just wasting time showing that mid-looking movie, which is honestly from one of my favorite directors, but that movie looked. I ain't watching it. And I don't think many people gonna be interested to go watch a Gran Turismo movie. If it had been a movie like The Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, that's something. Oh snap, that's like Gran Turismo. All right. So to me, that was kind of a waste. Street Fighter was a waste. Final Fantasy was a waste. Those games, Street Fighter's literally coming out next week. I know they showed off like some extra story footage, but it's like there's no point. The game is coming out next week. We just played the beta. It's not like we don't know about the game. It's coming out. Final Fantasy is coming out in about a month now. There's no reason to, and I mean, y'all showed the game off enough already with just look at the fighting, look at the action. So those were two slots that were wasted. There was another slot I felt that was wasted. Mainly just anything that was just like straight CG. If they condense it down, maybe they do have some other heavy hitting games that we haven't seen just yet that they're working on. Honestly, I mean, maybe just make sure that most of the stuff is just like maybe like more exclusive to Sony, like PlayStation. Like you showing a lot of multi like platform stuff. It's like this is PlayStation showcase, not multi-platform showcase. This is y'all showcase. So I feel like you should show more stuff that's yours only. Like you can't play this nowhere else. And for the fact that Terrence showed that tweet, that's kind of a really like the sum of it all. It's like Xbox is like petty, like, hey, all those games y'all showed, it's gonna be nice playing them with Xbox too, man. I can't wait to play Metal Gear Solid Delta on Xbox. It's gonna be so good. So that was kind of them just proving like, hey, y'all should show a lot of your own stuff there that's like just can only be played on PlayStation. There's no news of Wolverine. I guess that makes sense because they're trying to focus on Spider-Man, but it's like there's no news of Wolverine. Like, of course, like the factions, The Last of Us, it's like, what is Naughty Dog doing? It's like, I just think that they need to be focused. So if they do another one, just make sure you gotta make every slot count. Make everything that you show count. Make it from you. If you showing gameplay or something running, make sure it's running on the PS5, not running on the PC, because it's like that kind of defeats the whole purpose. Unless there's like some Sony computers, I guess that would be fine. I don't know. But yeah, I don't really think that it fully taints like the image of Sony. It does a little bit because I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think over the years of looking at showcases and stuff like that, Sony has always usually like done. I've always been pretty pleased with what they've shown, but like this one, like it was just like, ooh, this was kind of rough. This ain't really the Sony that I kind of remember seeing back in the past. So I'm not gonna say like, man, Sony trash, they dead. No, I'm not gonna say that. But it does. It's like y'all gotta you gotta come with it next time. So I think if they did another, I'd be down for that.
I obviously I think if they can do another, they should. But I mean, I get it would, like y'all said, it just depends on what games they would have.
Yeah,
I would want either fewer games and then you just focus a lot on like first party games, or like I games that are strongly tied to the Sony brand, like one or the other, like well, both really. And then like not a bunch of games where it's just like, yeah, well, this had to be shown somewhere. They cut a check, that they wanted to do the promotional stuff with us, and so we did it here. Like, you can't have too many of those. Like, if it had been, I don't know, 2 or 3 games, I think Xbox might not have made that tweet. But like, they saw it was like upwards of 8 or 9 games, and they were like, "Oh, we got to do it," because it fills up a whole little page that we can show and be like, "Yeah, all coming to Xbox." It's like, man, that don't look good. And I'm not really a fanboy, like, because I don't even own a PlayStation 5 at the moment. But like, it just looked bad, and it just feels like you forgot what your identity is. And so, like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that it would have been better if you didn't do this showcase, but I am going to say it would have been better if you had like maybe niched down a little bit. And definitely, whenever you do the next one, I need more gameplay than this, because like the idea of you just showing so many like, oh, these are our top tier IPs coming out, and then you couldn't show us what the gameplay looked like. That's not a good look. And I know that Sony has been on top for so long, really since the start of the PS4 generation. They've been on top for so long, but like, don't let that get you to the point where you just feel like, oh, well, we could just do whatever we want, and it doesn't matter. Y'all gonna pay for it anyway. Don't let that happen to y'all.
That's how you get the PS3.
That is exactly how you get the PS3. If you just start being like, well, it don't matter, we on top, we got the PS2, we outsold every other console combined times 3, like, what they gonna do to us? Like, that's how you get the PS3, where you start off the gen kind of like sad, and everybody's just like, oh, I mean, like, and there are some people that you lost to Xbox for a long time, and you like, the only reason why you may have gotten some of those people back is because Xbox has been falling on their face lately. But like, if not for that, you'd have never got those people back. And so like, you need to be careful about that. Like, you can't just take the fans for granted and just assume that you're gonna always have their interest. Like, the more I think about the fact that we didn't see that much gameplay, the angrier I get. Like, even though I was giving it a 5, because I was just like, this is kind of disappointing. But like, I was sitting here thinking like, man, y'all really had almost no gameplay to show except for like PlayStation, except for like Spider-Man 2, of course, since that was coming out, and then stuff like Cat Quest or like Tower of Agaspar, which is like, those games aren't really tied to y'all in the first place. So that's just weird. I don't know. But that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. If you liked it, I need a few things from you. I need you to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on TikTok. I need you to tell your friends about us. And I need you to do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.